Oh, I'm John Asdal. I was hired by the board to be the resident manager of a camp that had just opened up in Highland Lake. Uh, and I missed the first summer, but then at the end of the summer I was my son and I came up to camp. I was hired by the board after they interviewed other people or other candidates for the job. And there was a construction trailer back of the farmhouse that the original people got there. Anyhow, my son and I were there, and my wife was back on Staten Island selling our house, coming up on weekends and saying hello, and then going back to her very nice nursing job that she had, which made it a little not mad, but discouraged. She was just starting in a very nice nursing position in, what's the place?
Edgar Lutheran Home.
Edgar Lutheran Home. And I yanked her by the back of the neck, and she came along with us. And the years, I don't know if it, well, one of the first things when Cliff was here, my wife wasn't here, we looked out the construction trailer, and up from the local road came a big truck, and the big truck had horses in it, and they found us, and we put the lights on, and there was a farmhouse on the site, and with the farmhouse there was a ramshackle barn and some corral around it. So he dumped the horses here in my lap, and Cliff got a little. He said, "How about water, and how about this, and all kind of." So he was 15, I don't know, something like that. And anyhow, we got them we got some water, and got them in the barn, and Cliff was fussing this stuff, and I said, "Cliff, we're going to open the door in the morning and see how the horses are. They have to fight their own battles, and what are they going to do now?" So in the morning we got up, and then we named him Blackie. He was a black horse, and he come out first, and then the other horses come out. And I learned something about horses, that Blackie and 11 other horses that night decided who was number one in the herd, who was number two, because every time, and then I built a corral by chopping old 4-inch saplings down and nailing them along as a railing. And Blackie always come out first, and when we put food in buckets along the fence, Blackie was always first in line. Blackie, anyhow, and it's not only Blackie, but the second horse, third, fourth, they always lined up with the same thing. They decided on that night who the fifth and sixth horse decided that. See what I mean? And so that was a little insight in horse management that I didn't know about. See, and there's a lot of things about horse management I didn't know, but I learned quick anyhow. And Cliff then took the horses on a weekend for an hour. I signed when this is off season, not in the summertime. That was another program, but the off season program, when they checked in with me for different houses, and with the kids, I asked her how many want to ride tomorrow night for, I don't know how much I charged.
$1.
$1 a ride, you know. So,
And they gave Cliff 10 cents a horse.
no. I gave, well, I had to hire somebody. I wasn't gonna spend my time, you know,
Taking kids on rides.
taking things
Okay.
and
Well, enough for
that's enough for now. That was a little inside of one of my early experiences in life at camp.
Then you
My,
Go ahead, yeah.
oh, well, I was, and
Johnny, excuse me, this is gonna be edited, right? So, tell him that we lived in the trailer while you completed the Asdal house.
yeah, the contractor that was there had started the house, and so I had to let him go and continue. And I had in my life, I built my own house, you know, so I had some experience in building a house, and John Bleefeneck, when I met him last night, he proved his worth because he knew something about electricity and I didn't know anything. So we wired the whole house, you know, and I knew him from Our Savior Church, which was the impetus of being in Koinonia, because Koinonia was built by the youth program of the Metropolitan New York Synod after surveying all the possible sites. The idea was to get a site of, we had 3 miles by 2 miles, so a good site, but the key that they were looking for was that they can control, they wanted it with lake for swimming and boating and fishing and all that, but they wanted the water to be all the way around the banks be controlled by the camp. So we would have that privilege exclusively for the camp. We weren't a big camp like in Jersey. There's some bigger camps. You just buy 50 acres on the lake, and the lake was controlled by whoever. But anyhow, and I don't know.
And also, the original monies came from a parishioner in our church, our Savior's Church,
Yes.
down there. And
That was Pastor Bob at
Pastor Nervick was our pastor at the time, and she loved children and never had any. So he used to take her around, and of course he had in the back of his mind that there was a need for a camp to get the kids out of New York City. So when she passed away, she left her estate, which back in those days was a lot of money, $125,000.
I don't think she realized she was that wealthy because it was IBM stock, and she just bought the stock and put it away.
She looked like a poor woman coming
Yeah,
into church every Sunday with the same old coat and hat and stuff.
She was a masseur.
Yeah, from Sweden. But
Anyhow, there's some the start of the camp. The board of directors of Our Savior Lutheran Church got the money, and they said it's too much money for our quote building, and Pastor Bob Nervick put the idea of why don't you take $25,000 to the church itself and offer the $100,000 to the synod if the synod would match it, and they had council meetings, the area, and that was proposed and accepted. So all the churches in the metropolitan New York area, there's about 40, they all joined forces and had individual fundraisers in the church, along with our $100,000, and that was, and then the committee bought the Koinonia property, and that started this is 50 years later, and we had, and we were, I retired 30 years ago, so I'm 109, no, not 100, 94 now. That's 95. She married a younger guy. Yeah.
He needed somebody to take care of.
Yeah, yeah. Well, she liked nursing, and she went into nursing. And after nursing, and I went to Forestry College, and I had 2 years of that. And by that time, she was graduated from 3-year college of nursing, and we got married. And 6 months later, I was in the army with a rifle, shooting Germans. Yeah.
So, Koinonia.
Yeah. 3.5 years I was in the army.
What is Koinonia? And now that you're coming back, what do you think is different in a positive way? How do you feel about Koinonia coming back as?
I just think that it was so deep-rooted in the original people that were a part of it. They gave so much, they didn't want anything in return. They just gave. And so you can talk to all these people here and think of the experiences they had and the lives that were changed. And with the kids, you know, and over the years, being here so long, parents would come to us and say, you know, their child when they came home was a different child. And unfortunately now, because of many circumstances, now they don't even have summer camp. The first summer I can remember was the old farmhouse, and of course Jerry's landlord, our first director, his wife, she took care of the kitchen the first week, and I was the nurse. And so then...
Not hired by it.
Not hired.
You were hired.
Volunteer nurse, everything. But anyway, after the first session, Joanne didn't want to do it because her mother was going to come visit. Well, Jerry says to me, well, you're around the farmhouse all, and he says, you could run the kitchen, right? It was the worst thing I agreed to, because from then on, for how many years, I ran the kitchen, and I ran...
Job for life?
Yeah, you know, and then I was a nurse besides, and...
No money.
No.
Volunteer.
No money, $500 I got.
After a while, that.
$500. But aside from that, you know, and to this day I say, you know, back in those days, that was when all the unrest was at the colleges in the 60s, the flower. And I said there were still so many. Of course, the staff we had, you know, majority from the colleges out west, they wanted to come here and work because they wanted to go to New York City. And we had enough local staff people here that they would take them home with them over there, you know, every other weekend, see if they were off. And there was never a counselor here in camp. They all went Staten Island, New York, Long Island.
Koinonia was the first camp, Lutheran camp, that had more than 1 week. Historically, in the United States, they went to 1 week Bible camp. Well, Koinonia was set up 2 weeks. 12 days. 12 days.
Yeah.
So there was 2 weeks while the camp didn't have anybody in it, and that's what she's referring to. The Western Academy went with their comrades back to the cities where they had nice experience in
city,
as opposed to the theoretically, they were all in the farm people out west.
Well, Jerry Manloff's philosophy was that it takes a child a while to adjust. First of all, this was a working camp. It wasn't any easy camp. It was a working camp, so they weren't used to that, and they're not used to being away from home. He said it takes almost a week for them to become Aryan. And so that's where that.
And you must realize that camp was a new camp, just one year in existence, or half a year that first summer. And the kids that were asked to come to camp was, I think,
They were only
seniors.
high school, only high school kids.
Well, they were more than that. They were seniors and juniors for the first trial. We did, so they were a little bit more mature than just everybody in the high school. And after a while, they had senior, and then juniors, and sophomores and freshmen, and then they went into maybe 5 years, 10 years later, they went into lower grades. The lowest we ever served was sixth grades, the sixth graders, you know. And so we built over the years different facilities to accommodate seniors, juniors, you know, like that. So the summer program was varied as we got different groups in. So, and that was very, very good, and it was important. And after Jerry left, he continued in camp life and out west, and that's when we had Nervick came.
I have to inject a little personal thing here. When they were interviewing for the manager, and at the time there were 10 couples that were interested, all wanted to come up here. So they narrowed it down to 3 couples, and we came up. And I can still see us sitting in the farmhouse with the board of trustees, you know, the trustees and all of them. And Jerry Manloff was there because he was already hired. And sat there and I thought to myself, the questions that they asked, they think they were going to be some big high-paying job, you know?
Yeah.
And I was thinking of the big cut he was going to take if he got this job. He worked in Procter & Gamble, so he had a nice job there. Well, anyway, we sat there for 3 hours, I think. Well, anyway, so when we left, Jerry said, we'll call you on Monday and let you know one way or the other. So I went home and did I pray that it would be no. So he called Monday morning and he said, I answered the phone. He said, well, Dorothy, you're in. That's it. So anyway, what could I do? So in the interview, when he interviewed me, found out I was a nurse, he says, did you ever cook? And I said, I've cooked church dinners and things. I can cook, I guess. So I thought, well, that was pretty good. So anyway, so I was hired. And years later, he said, well, how do you feel about the move? And I said, well, I'm certainly not for it. But I guess I have to go when my husband goes. And years later, a couple of times at the meetings and things, he'd say, Dorothy is the most honest woman I've ever met. Because she said right out she was not. I wasn't. I was very upset. But anyway,
She wasn't going to smooth the path for me.
but we certainly had a wonderful life.
Yes.
Certainly met wonderful people, all the church people.
Yes.
And it was interesting that it, it kept progressing and progressing. But toward the end, when they were here, then it was starting to go, And of course, as you know, to this day, it's always been the money problem. I ended up, I was probably chief cook of Boston watching, Johnny didn't have anybody help, so I would clean buildings and I would cook and I would not. And I think the last couple of years they paid me $1,000 a year. That's what I did. Never anything above that. So anyway, that's, I don't know what else we can tell, but it's just from the heart. I'm so happy to be here
Yeah.
and to see that this place is so beautiful. Yeah.
Well,
And I just hope it will continue.
I went to bed every night happy for 10 years, yes. I really was. I enjoyed the life
Yeah.
and enjoyed what I was doing, and the people were wonderful. So,
And we became a big part of the community here
yeah,
in Highland Lake. We really were. Did a lot of things.
yeah.
Okay, we've gone way over our time.
Well, they can edit it.
Yeah, he can take out a
Oh,
lot.
that's good.
Yeah.
Everything's good.
Huh?
That's great. You guys did great. Thank you.
I'm sorry we took so much time.
That's all right.
We could go on and on.
You're a very